Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. The aviation weather Alaska weather headlines is again for the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit webpage. It'll be changing July 14th. So check out the new links, maps, PIREPs, TAFs, the whole thing on there. And then when the change hits, you'll be used to using the new webpage. And from there, we'll go to the satellite imagery from yesterday. And not too bad up here over the north central and northeast interior. Clouds rolling in, but also some sun breaks all the way up to the north slope, eastern Arctic coast areas. Lots of clouds here in the west and a lot of clouds over the Gulf of Alaska, northeast Pacific, pushing in, continuing to push up across the southeast coast, pulling back into the western or into the North Gulf Coast and Kenai Peninsula, and then a front pushing eastward across the Bering Sea and extending all the way down across the Aleutians with some rain with that pushing into the Pribilofs. And you can see that rotating across the Aleutians up here a little bit slower with the main low center hanging back to the north. And then over to the east in Canada, we had this band of moisture here flowing into the Copper River Basin. That's what brought the rain last night and this morning in across south central Alaska. And we'll see on today's chart here, it's still extending back into Canada, but this area is lifting northward a little bit there, and but still flowing from the northeast in across from the Copper River Basin right on down into south central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula. But showers diminishing this afternoon with the rain. Lots of showers continued as forecast here across the southeast coast today with mostly cloudy to just cloudy skies across that area. There are some breaks starting to show up here off the coast there, but another batch of moisture in that area will be rolling in. Cloudy Kodiak Island, clouds here across the Alaska Peninsula of the higher clouds, low clouds right up to the coastline, covering all of the Bering Sea down to the eastern Aleutians. A few breaks there south of Nikolsky, and but just about cloud covered there at any level for the Bering Sea with areas of fog. Till you get out toward Shimia, it looks like they're into some sunshine today for Shimia and Attu. And up over the northern interior, Yukon Flats, pretty clear. Eastward there, even more clearing into the from the Koyukuk Valley across the Kobuk into the Noatak Valley areas. Seward Peninsula looking pretty good on down into the lower Yukon River Valley and to a certain extent the Delta there, but picking up these clouds right along the coast. And rolling that along again today, thunderstorms developing here again over the eastern interior, widely scattered out to the west there to isolated, with the main area again from the Alaska Range on up to the north. Could have been a few strikes down along the western Alaska Range in the northern areas, but anyway, a little bit more clearing now in the Gulf of Alaska taking place, and as I mentioned, starting to show up off the southeast coast, but showers are not going to end completely tonight or tomorrow. And for today, showers covering the area there with areas of rain or showers extending back up along the North Gulf Coast. Again, heaviest rain coming across south central Alaska last night, up to ½ an inch in some areas with afternoon thunderstorms, mostly from the Alaska Range over the eastern interior, all the way up to the Brooks Range there. And then just pretty isolated back through here to ending into some sunshine again over the Yukon Delta. And then lots of low clouds, fog, rain, drizzle anywhere over the Bering Sea from the strait there all the way down, especially near this warm front, starting to increase the moisture a little bit there, spreading into the Pribilofs with basically light westerly winds, pretty light winds all across the Aleutians and the Bering Sea, and of course the west coast here under that weak ridge of high pressure building right up all the way up to that 1011 millibar center, not all that high. but that's going to continue to begin to dominate the interior areas more and more the next couple of days. Starting out with tonight's forecast, we still have that trough lying in roughly this position here, the moisture continuing to feed down. So showers continue with possible thunderstorms again, the western Alaska range back up across the southeast part of the Copper River, or the Tanana Valley there, Northway Tok, maybe Delta, chance of thunderstorms diminishing back to the west, but still a risk all the way up to the southern slopes of the eastern Brooks Range. Drying out back to the west pretty abruptly with maybe some increasing clearing going on there from the Selawik Valley southward into the eastern Yukon Delta, but not too bad even along the coast. Probably not this much clearing will be taking place. Still have a west-southwest flow as weak as it is, so probably more considerable low clouds and fog and less clearing than what I've got shown here in those sand traps, but definitely along the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, that'll be a little more socked in than the Pacific side there, that weak offshore flow or northwest wind, with eastern Aleutians looking pretty good. Dry, light winds, all of the Aleutians with areas of fog. And the Gulf of Alaska looks like a few less showers now along the panhandle for tonight, but again, more still off the coast there, moving very slowly up to the northeast. Could be a few areas of clearing there along the central coast, but still mostly cloudy. And for the outlook for tomorrow, that same pattern again. That trough pushes more showers in across the panhandle, so it may increase a little bit over tonight again, but that condition starting to diminish here with each passing day. This next one that comes up probably won't be quite as wet or have quite as many showers with it. Otherwise, look for the clearing to start. Might be a little early here, but still a chance of showers south central Alaska. Probably less of a chance here for the North Gulf Coast. Except Cordova, just a risk over to Yakutat, Copper River Basin, and most of the thunderstorm activity again along the western Alaska Range, maybe the northern Susitna Valley, up into the Tanana Valley, central on off to the north and northeast, and extending along back and to the north side of this trough there, up across the Koyukuk Valley to maybe the southern slopes of the west central Brooks Range. More sunshine out here in the west, warmer temperatures developing as well, and also for the eastern north slope. Eastern Tanana Valley could see some sunshine as well. Chance of showers there, mainly Kilbrook, Auckland mountain areas, and the Aleutian Range. Otherwise, Bristol Bay basically dry, but kind of on the cloudy side. Look for skies to start clearing here for Kachemak Bay on down toward actually Kodiak Islands. The risk is showers down toward AKwx. Otherwise, flat high pressure here. No winds, light winds, very light winds. Areas low clouds and fog, pretty extensive, kind of a typical summer pattern out here for the Bering Sea. And that warm front still threatening the Pribilofs with a little bit of moisture and possible low IFR conditions, but areas IFR all the way through the Bering Strait to the Chukchi Sea. And another warm front, part of the next system, spreading moisture in toward the western Aleutians late tomorrow afternoon. And it comes rolling up pretty good. You can see a pretty good front comes up for Tuesday with probably small craft advisory winds, 20 to 25 knots, maybe some higher gusts as that thing pushes eastward with another round of rain with it. Bulk of the moisture, though, heading northward, but some rain will come eastward across Adak and then Atka. Otherwise, for Tuesday, looks pretty good there front Alaska and even Nikolsky, maybe some partly sunny conditions. Dry, but cloudy and foggy for the Pribilofs, right up to St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait, and that leftover moisture kind of coming northward on the west side of this ridge. Takes a turn to the northeast there and rolls right in across Kotzebue Sound, on out Kivalina, right up the northwest coast there. So it looks cloudy with occasionally wet conditions for Tuesday. Showers, light rain, fog, drizzle, that sort of thing. Areas of fog along the Arctic coast with the north slope looking pretty good. Sunshine through the Brooks Range, down through the central interior west side. And even the Susitna Valley here got these clouds in, but looks like all the convection will be just off to the east there. Again, the 40-mile country, eastern Alaska Range northward there to near or just north of Eagle. And this area will probably be east of Arctic Village. Old Crow mostly likely getting in on the thunderstorm activity. And then a trough extending down. Chance of showers into Yakutat or isolated thunderstorms. Still a chance of showers, but not quite as many or as heavy, and a little more widely spaced there for the southeast coast with possible clearing showing up as well. So kind of trending toward drier conditions there. over the next couple of days. Temperatures down that way today, all in the 50s, except over at Stewart with 61 degrees. Otherwise, Klawock had 54. Same thing up there at Petersburg, 54 degrees, 58 at Juneau, 62 Skagway, and mid to upper 50s along the coast, North Gulf Coast, 57 at Yakutat. Cools down to 54 over at Whittier. 56 in Seward, same temperature match there at Homer. Just 52 in Kenai this afternoon with a 55-degree reading at Palmer, and Talkeetna only 57 degrees, 55 in Gulkana. North of the mountains there, kind of a range from just 60 at Bettles to 68 at Fairbanks, and then into the lower to mid 70s just off to the west there with more sunshine from Sleepmute at 73 to 71 in McGrath, all the way up to 77 at both Fort Yukon and Bettles, then back down to 56 in Anatuvik, but Arctic Village up to 74 and a 41 there at Dead Horse, 51 degrees at Etusuk, as well as Point Lay and Cape Lisburne. Upper 50s for the northwest areas, Kotzebue Sound. At Kotzebue 57, 48 Shishmaref, about that down at Nome, a couple degrees warmer though, and 60s cool into the 50s here as you head out toward the coast and then fall into the upper 40s right along the coastline. That's Macoriac with 48, 47 at Savunga, and upper 40s, mid to upper 40s for the Pribilofs. Lower to mid 50s out here over the Aleutians, and the Alaska Peninsula, upper 40s to mid 50s, and warming up to, let's see, that's 68 degrees. I believe that's Pedro Bay. For the lows tonight, again, nice mild 55 to 60 degree readings here, central interior, northeastward across the Yukon Flats. Mid 30s, mid to upper central eastern Arctic coast, otherwise 40s, and 40s here in the west, Aleutians, west coast, and upper 40s, Copper River Basin, cooler higher elevations and valleys, of course, and upper 40s to the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow back into the mid to upper 70s to near 80 here, especially over the central eastern interior, depending on kind of the clouds holding that back, though, the development of thunderstorms in the afternoon, and that'll be the case also on Tuesday. But some good 70s possibly right back up into the Noatak Valley and trying to edge into the Seward Peninsula, definitely 60s, but holding in the mid to upper 50s for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta west side, near 50 along the coast, 40s out over the Bering Sea, lower 50s for the Aleutians, mid to upper 50s for the Panhandle. And flying weather, marginal VFR late tonight into early tomorrow for all of the southeast coast, patch IFR here near Yakutat, possible IFR in the southern slopes of the central Alaska Range, Bristol Bay IFR in the forecast, as well as the Arctic coast and areas of out over the Bering Sea, especially with that warm front right through here for the Pribilof Islands. Tomorrow afternoon, that's a patch of marginal VFR right there, not VFR, but widespread IFR around that here, pushing up to Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, all the way down to the Alaska Peninsula. Then a much more widespread area out here over the southwest Bering and just about all of the Aleutians. Right along the Arctic coast, IFR, VFR from the north slope, all the way down until you get south of the Alaska Range here, or on the over the crest of the mountains. Then you increase the marginal VFR conditions, Yakutat VFR, and some marginal VFR across all of the Panhandle. And the Tuvik and Adigan look VFR tomorrow, pretty good there, not even a chance of thunderstorms, but Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal at times, especially in the afternoon, a risk of a thunderstorm, and rainy, maybe a little bit better chance of a thunderstorm, marginal at times there as well. Same forecast for Windy, marginal VFR, and Isabel though looks VFR, so any showers of thunderstorms that develop will be VFR of the VFR variety, and same thing for Mentasta, will be even less clouds, less convection from Mentasta Pass. Tanita, marginal, going kind of back and forth, marginal VFR in the morning, trending toward VFR in the afternoon. In Portage, marginal VFR. Chilkoot and White, same forecast. For the freezing levels here, about 8,000 feet or so across just about all the interior, dropping back to 6,000 feet, Gulf of Alaska, across the Panhandle. And then a big warm up out here to the west, 6 to 8 to 10, 12,000 feet there over the southwest Bering from about, that's at Adak on out to Shimia up to 12,000 feet. Then for icing, with that warm front swinging up, that's going to be above 12,000 feet for any icing out in this area with that warm air aloft. Above about 7,000 feet, areas of, again, light to very isolated moderate rime or mixed icing. Kodiak Island, across northern Bristol Bay, then back up along the Alaska Range into the interior. where the higher freezing levels put it above 10,000 feet there, and then about above 7,000 for the southeast coast. And the jet stream ridging here over the Bering Sea, so the main jet is well to the south and cutting in across south of the Queen Charlotte. So we've got a lack of flow right through here with basically high pressure aloft developing over the interior. That'll become even more expansive on Tuesday, and that'll deflect this wind condition up to the north. For 9,000 feet, light winds cross the interior, basically from a north-northwest, but really light, just 5 to 10 knots here, all the way up to the Arctic coast, so they may reach 15. And east side of the Panhandle, 15 to 25, just across the border there. Otherwise, light winds for the Gulf of Alaska, 30 to 35 knots coming in at 9,000 feet way out there to the west. And at 3,000 feet, call it 20 to 30 knots out there. That south-southwesterly flow, again, carrying most of the moisture up in toward Russia. High pressure southwest Bering ridging up along the west coast and inland there to the east western Arctic coast. Really light variable winds across all of the interior. Could be a 25 knot wind, 20 to 25 right through here in a narrow band. Otherwise light and variable. So for turbulence, not a whole lot to speak of. Possibly Selawik Valley due to some westerly winds in the afternoon there. Selawik out towards Kotzebue and the northern coast of Bristol Bay, as well as the far western Aleutians. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
The 70 nautical mile trip to Skagway from Juneau is fairly straightforward. One noteworthy item is the lack of beaches in the area. The slope of the mountains continues to the bottom of the canal, causing small rocky outcroppings in most areas. There are a couple of small dirt strips located at Glacier Point and Endicott on the west side and Katsahine on the east side. Flying up the Lynn Canal to Taya Inlet is the preferred route to Skagway. The Lynn Canal has several prominent reporting points that are used by the local operators and private pilots.
Connected 63 Foxy Islander, the departure end is headed for Portland Island, runway 26 cleared for takeoff. 63 Foxy.
After departing Juneau to the west, you should fly to the right side of Lynn Canal, close to the land mass. Utilize the hemispheric rule for determining your flying altitude. The first prominent departure reporting points are Lena Point, T Harbor, Eagle Beach, and Benjamin Island. Next, you will approach Berners Bay, Bridget Point, and Echo Cove, which will be to the right. After passing Berners Bay, Point St. Mary's is the next reporting point. Keep in mind, Berners Bay is important as a reporting point. Most poor weather conditions for the Lynn Canal are generated in this area. Adiabatic winds descending from the ice fields to the north of Berners Bay can create fog or turbulence depending on the temperature dew point spread. Tour operators will normally report Sherman Point on the other side of Berners Bay and Eldred Rock Lighthouse. Sullivan Island is to the left. The canal splits at this point, with Chilkat Inlet leading to Haines to the left, while Chilkoot Inlet bears right to Skagway. Continuing to follow the shoreline to the right, the canal splits again, forming Lutak Inlet to the left, which is a dead end. On the right is Taya Inlet, which takes you to Skagway. Once in Taya Inlet, report Taya Point and fly to the left side of the inlet to conform with prevailing traffic in the area. When approaching Skagway, be alert for tour operators in the area and for helicopter traffic departing and arriving at Skagway. The traffic pattern is at 1,000 feet with right-hand traffic for runway 19 to avoid the town of Skagway. It will appear that the pattern is close to the mountain, and it is. You will find that you are quite close to the trees on the downwind. A close-in base turn around the water tanks to almost immediate final is needed to avoid overshooting the final approach. This is a tight, narrow canyon that consistently generates turbulent winds in the pattern and on the runway. Be aware that there is a bridge with automobile and truck traffic at the end of the final approach end for runway 19. The bridge is used as a final reporting point. There's a school to the left of the runway just beyond the bridge that must not be overflown. Since the runway is narrow and 3,700 feet long, it gives the appearance that you must land on the approach end numbers in order to stop by the end of the runway.
Welcome back. Look for light south winds at about 15 knots on the south coast, turning south to southeast, 10 to 15 up north, seas just 4 to 6 feet and up to 7 feet south. South 15 for Clarence Strait, turning southeast at about 15 for the Frederick Sound Stevens Passage area. Lynn Canal, south 20, 4-foot seas. And then for Tuesday, those fall back to 15 as the pattern has been. Kind of one day to the other, 15 one day, 20 the next. Light variable winds here on for the central and southern inside waters. Light 10-knot winds on the south coast. The seas just 6 feet there. And 15 knots with 5-foot seas here for the north coast. And really light variable winds, Prince William Sound, the North Gulf Coast, down into the Barrens, on up into Kachemak Bay. But northerlies 15 to maybe 20 knots there on the east side of Kodiak Island. And then southerlies at 10 to 15 for Cook Inlet or south-southwest. Then on Tuesday, no change, Prince William Sound, light variable conditions. Same thing for the North Gulf Coast. So a couple of really laid down wind days coming up. Southwest 15 for the Barrens, otherwise light and variable winds, Kodiak Island from Shelikof Strait up in towards southern Cook Inlet. Then they pick up south to southwest, but well, they don't pick up at all, just 10 knots. And then for Bristol Bay, west winds 20 knots, northwest 15 knots here for the peninsula. Castle Cape to Sitkinak back into the west wind at 20 knots. And then for Tuesday, northerlies at 15 here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. South side, variable at 10. Castle Cape to Sitkinak, northwest 15. West 15 for Bristol Bay. Fox Island, southwest, 10 to 15 knots. Southerlies to southwest, Adak and Atka, only 15 knots. And then 20-knot winds west of Adak on out toward Chimia from the south to southeast. And then we've got small craft advisories on Tuesday coming into the western Aleutians out here, otherwise 20 knots, central areas. Southeast, 20 to 25 here, west of Nikolsky, and southeast 15 to 20 across Unalaska Island. Southwest coast variable to southwest of 15. Light variable winds for the Pribilof, south 20 there for St. Matthew Island. And St. Lawrence Island, same direction, about 15 knots, seas 4 to 5 feet. And for Tuesday, southeast 20-knot winds here. The Pribilofs right on up into St. Matthew Island, especially from the island west, 25 knots. Small craft advisories, 8-foot seas. 10 to 15 knots here north of Nunivak Island up across St. Lawrence Island, and west 15 into Kuskokwim Bay, south of Nunivak Island. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, northwest 10 to up to 15 knots here on the extreme east side, east end, and north 10 knots on the western coast. Southerlies 15 from the Wales to Cape Beaufort zones. And those pick up to about 20 knots from the same direction on Tuesday. A little bit of an increase there, seas building to 4 feet. South 15, 3-foot seas on the western coast here. Central coast west at 10 knots, but those pick up now 15 to 20 knots there, heading east to Demarcation Point. And for tonight, still a chance of some showers there, light rain, fog, and drizzle. Moisture flowing off the coast there. Thunderstorms decreasing from the eastern Brooks Range southward into the interior, kind of holding on through this area again, probably throughout the entire night with the showers or just flat out rain. Isolated thunderstorms this evening. Less showers to the panhandle, but cloudy skies. And then for Monday, still showery. Still showers south central Alaska, but Tuesday warming up, clearing out, and drying out as well.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.